Call to order the November 15th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Smith for our ceremonial opening.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to adopt an agenda. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We move to our second item on the agenda, recognitions, reports, and presentations. And our first presentation tonight is to honor and recognize the We Strive group in our audience. And I'll invite the speakers to the podium for a presentation on online safety.
God bless you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity and allowing us to come out here to present for you tonight. My name is Mihika.
My name is Magna.
And my name is Abby.
And today we're here to talk to you about online safety. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the topic, but in this day and age, we are all surrounded by technology, whether it be your iPhones, laptops, cell phones, computers, everything. And it's been like an increasing concern, so we're here to talk to you about safety. What is online safety? Online safety is the practice of keeping your personal and private information private online. Did you know that there's a hacker attack every 39 seconds affecting 1 in 3 Americans every year? That's over 108 billion people. So how can you prevent a hacker attack? Number 1, you should create complex passwords. That means including symbols, letters, things like that. And number 2, use a firewall. Number 3, be a selective sharer, meaning be aware of who and where you share your personal and private information online. Number 4, practice safe surfing and shopping, meaning you only go to safe websites. Number 5, keep your software up to date. Software is constantly developing and evolving, and as hackers find new ways to break into your software, developers are also finding new ways to fix the holes. So you should always keep your software up to date. And that does mean not clicking the remind me later button whenever you see, whenever your computer asks you to, because I know we've all done it. Number 6. Install antivirus and anti-spyware programs so you can prevent future attacks. Here's some more tips to stay safe. Never give your personal information unless you are on a secure website. Don't respond to emails from unknown servers, and just know that information on the internet is not always reliable. Don't save passwords on a browser unless you know that it's secure.
So if you get a pop-up on your computer saying you want $100,000 or you want a cruise, these are all fake, but your first instinct is to click on it because everyone loves free stuff, right? So first, what you're going to do is not click on this because it's probably going to take you to something asking for your personal information. And behind that screen is a hacker that wants to either steal your identity or just wants to install malware in your computer. And pop-ups can happen on safe websites and websites that aren't so safe. So first, to start off, to make sure you are on a safe website, make sure your URL starts with HTTP and not HTTP and HTTPS, and the S stands for secure. So to create a secure password on your accounts, first you're going to want to start with a word or a phrase that's easy to think of, or also something that's so random that stays in your head for no apparent reason. So you can also change letters to numbers, so like E's to 3, L's to 1, and S's to 5s. You can also add punctuation and numbers at the end or the beginning. And the last and most important step is to make sure that you don't share your password and make sure that you can memorize this. so you don't have to write it down anywhere. So some password examples are the ones in red are ones that you don't want to use. Passwords and number sequences that are easy to know are easy to hack into. And the last one, you probably can't remember that, so you're probably going to have to restart and find a new password. So the last ones are ones you can see that we took from other words like snowball, chocolate chip, and colorful. So we replaced the letters with numbers and we added symbols. And those are some good passwords you guys can use.
Write it down.
Cyberbullying is a form of online harassment, usually involving intimidating or threatening messages. 43% of kids have been bullied online. 25% of kids have been bullied more than once. 70% of teens report seeing frequent bullying online, which means it's easy to come across bullying. 80% of teens use a cell phone regularly, making it a common ground between teens. 68% of teens agree that cyberbullying is a serious issue. 81% of teens believe that online bullying is easier to get away with than in person because it's harder to get caught and it's easier to hide behind a screen. Just to recap, only share your personal information, which is your name, phone number, email, social security number, and credit card information with people that you trust. A secure password should include uppercase, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Don't forget to memorize your password. And make sure you don't click on any suspicious pop-up ads.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a great presentation, and we need to all follow the tips we've been given. All right, we're going to move to our second item under recognitions, and it's a big one. It's recognizing or pinning of the fire chief, Michael Cooper, and I'll turn it over to our town manager, Sean Stiegel, for this introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Well, tonight sure is a special evening. In addition to recognizing our Hometown Spirit Award winner, to recognize our new fire chief, Mike Cooper. And in order to do that, we also get to recognize our new public safety director, who used to be our old fire chief. Not old in a bad way, just our former, you know, mean those slips. Our former fire chief, Alan Kane. So I'd like to call both Alan Kane and Chief Cooper up to do the pinning.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stiegel, Mayor, Town Council, and Ms. Simpson. Good evening. We are here in fire service tradition to complete Mike Cooper's appointment as fire chief with a ceremonial oath of office and oath of service and a badge pinning. Now, for those who may not know Chief Cooper, he is a 31-year veteran of the fire service, and next month will mark his 13th year of service for Cary. Mike started his fire service journey with the Durham Highway Fire Department, where, given his leadership abilities, he rose to the position of fire chief. So this is not his first go-round with the fire chief title. In 2005, we were fortunate to hire Mike from the city of Raleigh, where he served in several positions, including captain on their training staff and coordinator for the region's multi-agency search and rescue team. And it's in that role where I first experienced Mike's leadership. Since joining our staff, Mike has served as Assistant Fire Chief for Logistics and Administration, and for the last 16 months, he has served as Deputy Fire Chief, responsible for all fire station operations. But because of my recent assignment in the Planning Department, you may have heard about that, he has led the Fire Department essentially functioning as Fire Chief. Now, not only has Mike performed exceptionally well in those roles, he is also committed to his professional development. He is a certified fire officer by the state. And on a national perspective, Mike is one of approximately 3,000 graduates of the National Fire Academy's Executive Fire Officer Program, and he is one of 1,300 peer-reviewed and credentialed chief fire officers from the Center for Public Safety Excellence. It's a mouthful. Now that's 1 in 3,000 and 1 in 1,300 of approximately 350,000 career firefighters in our nation. So that's the caliber of people that Mike sits in. So each of these steps have prepared him for this role, and I am confident in his ability to serve our citizenry, lead our department, and contribute to the town's leadership. Shauna said he's overbaked for this opportunity, and we agree that Mike is ready and prepared. So with that introduction, we can proceed on with the confirmations. And several years ago, the fire department adopted a ceremonial oath for service, and I think it's appropriate that we administer that oath before Wendy pins Mike's fire chief badge. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mike's family, Wendy, his wife Wendy, sons Dylan and Noah, and daughter Grace, to join us at the podium. All right. Chief Cooper, please raise your right hand. Do you promise compassion and a willingness to help all those in need?
I do.
Do you promise courage to share and endure the ordeal of those who need you?
I do.
Do you promise leadership and strength to bear whatever burdens placed upon you, to deliver to safety all those whom you serve, whatever danger they may face?
I do.
Do you promise to observe and follow the values and policies of the town of Cary and the Cary Fire Department?
I do.
Do you promise to observe and obey the laws of the United States of America, the state of North Carolina, and the town of Cary?
I do.
Do you solemnly swear to faithfully and loyally execute your duties as fire chief and to respect and honor this oath that binds you to serve?
I do.
All good answers. Wendy, please pin Mike's badge. All right. Thank you, Wendy. Mayor, Town Council members, and citizens, it is my privilege to introduce Michael Wayne Cooper as Cary's Fire Chief.
Thank you, Alan.
Sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Stiegel. I am extremely thankful for the opportunity to serve as Cary's next fire chief. I am truly honored and humbled to serve the community in this capacity. Chief House, a retired Cary fire chief who I believe is in the audience tonight, and Chief Kane, you have set the bar high and prepared us well for the future. I'm amazed every day by the commitment, dedication, and level of service provided by the members of our fire department. I am looking forward to continuing to work with Alan, the members of our department, as well as my other colleagues in a one Cary approach to keep our community one of the safest places in the country. I'm also excited to continue to work with the citizens and deepen the wonderful relationship our town has with the community. To my family and friends, especially my wife and children. Each of you are very dear to me, and I'm grateful for your encouragement, your patience, and your guidance throughout the years. But I'm most thankful for your unconditional love. I would not be here tonight without your love and support, and I would like to thank all of you for being here tonight. Council, thank you again for this tremendous opportunity.
Congratulations, Chief Cooper, and congratulations to your family. We look forward to your leadership, and we're excited to see what you're going to do as our fire chief. Thank you. Okay, our last recognition report and presentations is another big one. It's the 2018 Hometown Spirit Award, and we're going to invite last year's winner 2017 winner, Ralph Ashworth, to meet me at the podium.
You got down the
Big guy.
I think it's a real big.
This is always a fun time. A lot of people think a lot of us know who it is. I have no idea. So I'm excited after Ralph gives his speech to hear who's going to win the Hometown Spirit Award. If you were with us earlier tonight, you got to hear the amazing accomplishments and contributions from each of the nominees. And I would like to recognize all the nominees again. One of them had a pre-planned vacation and is not here, but the other two are here. And I would like to ask them to please stand, and after I call their names, we can give them applause. Guy Mendenhall. Right here. And Cindy Sinkes. And Brent Miller, who's in Aruba. But he might have a relative here, a son. Anybody representing Brent here? Very good. All right, so now I'm going to let Ralph take over. He was our last year's winner, and he served us very well as the Hometown Spirit Award winner from last year. And he's going to open the envelope and let us know who this year's winner is.
I need a drum roll. Where's the drum? Here, there you go. I need it. And it was with great pleasure that I announced that the winner this year of the 2019 Home Spirit Award is Mr. Cary High School himself, Guy Mendenhall.
Well, thank the committee for this and the other people who were nominated for this. Your credentials were great, as they always have been in the past. And I just feel very honored to have to do this, be able to accept this award. And the people that I have worked with at the high schools, different clubs and organizations that I have been associated with. And it was always a pleasure, not knowing that this was going to come about it. But you do this because of the town of Cary. There's so many people who say Cary, and I say, well, it's close to Raleigh. And they all said, oh, I know exactly where that is. It is close to Raleigh, isn't it? But this is one of the things that has come about through the hard work of different people. But I appreciate this, but it is still, as far as I'm concerned, the #1 place in the United States to live because of you people sitting up there.
Oh.
Can I add one thing? If any of you have extra 20 minutes and want to hear one of Guy's stories, you come any Friday, and Esther and Guy will be eating a hot dog, and he will give you a story or two.
Guy, I know you have thousands of stories to tell, so to follow up on what you just said about Raleigh, Cary stands for Can't Annex Raleigh Yet, so you can...
Guy, congratulations, and I'm very pleased that my son Andrew won the Guy Mendenhall Spirit Award when he was at Cary High School. It means a lot to me for you to do this too. We appreciate you a lot.
Thank you very much. All right, time to get to business. We're going to move to Public Speaks Out now. Our next agenda item, Public Speaks Out, has instructions on the printed agenda. And if you would like to speak at Public Speaks Out, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. Our Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments. and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that works to your benefit because public hearing speakers get more time. As I said, there's a 3-minute time limit. We have a timer on the podium, and it starts off with a green light, and when the green light turns to a yellow light, that means you have 30 seconds remaining, and when it turns to a flashing red light, that's when I'll have to interrupt you, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers, and I'll ask you to immediately conclude your comments. To have an efficient public speaks out forum, we ask that groups have a spokesperson so that we don't have repetitive comments. And also, if you'd like to speak after the person speaking, I would ask that you stand over there in the stairways for 2 reasons. One, so that you can get to the microphone quickly since there's a 1-hour time limit. And 2, so we know we have other speakers. I thank everyone in the audience for understanding that this is a business meeting. We ask that you do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from Public Speaks Out. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out, and I would invite our first speaker forward.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Glenda Topp. I'm here tonight to address case 16 REZ North Harrison Hotels. As council knows, we started this process over 2 years ago. The time spent getting to this point has been time well spent. It has enabled us to develop a preliminary development plan that satisfies the concerns of, first, the most effective adjacent property owners within the Wessex subdivision. We have the support of the Beechtree Homeowners Association, and we also have the support of Stoltz Real Estate Partners, who own the Arboretum Shopping Center and have just recently purchased the Arboretum Apartments. We partnered with the Black Creek Watershed Association and North Carolina State University to apply for and receive an EPA grant for the study and implementation of a state-of-the-art stormwater management facility. And lastly, we addressed the remaining traffic concern by adding an alternate cross-access to the Arboretum. I have been involved with a lot of rezonings during my career, and I must say that the applicant has been committed throughout the entire process to meet with and address each issue by either the adjacent property owners, Town of Cary staff, and Town Council members. This can be seen in the number of revisions that have been made to the preliminary development plan and the self-imposed zoning conditions that ensure existing development will be adequately protected from the proposed development. Cary is known for its commitment to sound and forward-looking planning policies. This can be seen with the adoption of the Cary 2040 Community Plan. The Cary Community Plan lays out the future vision of the town. The plan establishes policies that rezonings must meet in order to show compliance. As identified in your staff report, the proposed rezoning complies with the applicable policies found in the plan. It follows the town's vision for community centers. The hotel use provides a service that is underrepresented in this part of Cary. The planned development complements the existing Arboretum Shopping Center, and as seen in newer development, hotels are part of mixed-use developments. This is an excellent use of an infill parcel. Staff recommends approval of this rezoning request with the conditions as proposed by the applicant. The Planning and Zoning Board found the request to be consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan and recommended approval by a vote of 8-0. The proposed rezoning is a clear example of compliance with the Cary Community Plan. We ask for council support and approval of rezoning case 16 REZ 15 North Harrison Avenue Hotels. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Topp. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I'm Bob Grannon. I'm the Chief Administration Officer and member of the Board of Directors of Cary Players. Your agenda tonight addresses many topics on behalf of the town. You'll be glad to know I'm not here to ask for anything or air a concern. I'm here to say thank you. Thank you for your commitment to the arts and the support of local theater. Several of you have seen the quality productions of Cary Players, and we're proud to be Cary's community theater company since 2002. This season, Cary Players will have entertained over 50,000 people in Town of Cary facilities. We believe we bring more people to the Cary Arts Center than any other organization. In addition, some 1,400 individuals from the town of Cary have volunteered their time as a crew member, actor, volunteer, and the number is probably much larger because we didn't exactly list everyone in the program. Cary Players is pleased to be a recipient of the annual arts grant from the town, and you'd be happy to know that we are responsible stewards of those funds. Our annual revenues exceed $100,000, most of which comes from ticket sales from 4 performances presented in the Cary Arts Center and the Cary. We also sponsor educational seminars related to theater. While we're diligent in putting aside funds for the future, we return most of that revenue to the community. We return to the town an amount that exceeds the grant you offer us through rentals and a share of our ticket price. We contribute to the local economy by renting space for our set building shop, local printers for our programs and marketing materials, purchasing building materials, and using a local restaurant for our concessions. Cary Players, again, thanks you for your support, and we invite you to our next production, a 1940s radio Christmas carol, opening November 30th. And lastly, if my name seems familiar, it's because I'm married to my favorite actress and a person who you work with on a regular basis, Miss Deborah Grannon, Associate Planning Director. Thanks again for your support, and I wish you continued success in leading the town of Cary. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're ready to go.
Everybody wanted to applaud, we're not supposed to. It hurt. Anyone else to speak at Public Speaks Out? Anyone at all? Seeing no one, we're going to close Public Speaks Out. We're going to move to the consent agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'll take a moment to review the consent agenda items. One vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes, we have Sprint lease agreements, bid award for the Maynard Road water tank rehabilitation, Old Weatherstone Way signalization construction bid award, Carpenter Fire Station Road grade separation and realignment with CSX Transportation, Act 6 Land Development Ordinance amendments, and 18 REZ 14 Triangle Aquatic Center expansion rezoning. Would council members like to pull any of these items off the consent agenda for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to public hearings. The rules for Public Speaks Out apply to public hearings with one exception. Speakers now have 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes for their comments. Our first public hearing is the Triangle Aquatic Center, TEFRA, I hope I pronounced that right, hearing, and Chief Financial Officer Karen Mills will present this item, and council may take action. Ms. Mills.
Good evening, council. Tonight, we're here to hold a public hearing and consider approval of a financing transaction for the Triangle Aquatic Center. You may recall 2 similar council actions for the Searstone Retirement Community and Triangle Math and Science Academy. Searstone Retirement Community, sorry. These projects obtain tax-exempt financing through the Public Finance Agency, which is a political subdivision of the state of Wisconsin. The Triangle Aquatic Center is also working with the Public Finance Agency and has requested the same action by council. The sole purpose of tonight's public hearing and approval is to meet the IRS rules for tax-exempt debt financing to benefit the Triangle Aquatic Center. By participating in this process, the town indirectly supports the fiscal success of the Aquatic Center, which is considered a benefit to our community. The Public Finance Agency is proposing to issue up to $10 million in revenue bonds, which would finance improvements to the Triangle Aquatic Center and refinance the center's 2006 variable rate debt. 3 key issues for the town are that this is not town of Cary debt. Unlike the prior 2 projects with Triangle Aquatic Center, Triangle Aquatic Center has agreed to indemnify the town in the case that any action is ever taken against the town connected to its role in this process. An approval of this resolution in no way implies that the town will grant zoning or other permit approvals. So to move forward, our next step would be to hold a public hearing, and after that, I'll comment on the resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Now's time for the public hearing on the Triangle Aquatic Center TEFRA hearing, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Anyone at all? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing and turn it back over to Ms. Mills.
Thank you. So the council resolution before you, I want to reiterate one more time very clearly, this is not a debt of the town. This resolution does approve the financing, and again reiterate that it does not guarantee any permitting approvals. And staff recommends approval of the resolution.
Questions or comments from council or a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Mills. We now move to our second public hearing, consideration of an ordinance designating 5104 Sears Farm Road as a Cary Historic Landmark. Senior Planner Anna Redling will present this item. Council may take action.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. For your consideration is an ordinance designating the John and Henry Sears House, and that's the historic name of the house, as the 11th Cary Historic Landmark. The house is owned by Zach and Stephanie Johnson and is located in western Cary at 5104 Sears Farm Road. People often ask, what does it mean to be a landmark? A local historic landmark is a property designated by Town Council as being of special significance in terms of its historic, cultural, or architectural significance, and has integrity of design, setting, and workmanship. Landmarks are properties that are important to the heritage and character of the community. Owners of landmark properties are eligible for property tax benefits, but in return, owners must receive approval from the Historic Preservation Commission before making changes to the design or appearance of the property's exterior. The green stars on this map represent the locations of Cary's 10 existing landmark buildings, and you can see that they're clustered in our downtown. Although one is in the Maynard Oaks subdivision near US 1 here. 2 are in Carpenter, in the Carpenter community, and the yellow star represents the property being considered tonight, the Sears House. The Sears House is so named because it was built in 1915 by John and Henry Sears. This is a photo taken of the Sears House in 2014 at its original location, here on Green Hope School Road. And you can see that it's basically kind of between Sears Farm Road and NC Highway 55. John and Henry owned the house for 53 years. Then in 1969, their heirs sold the house and 50 acres to Ross and Alma Stitt. The Stitts owned the property for another 45 years. So in 98 years, the house only had 2 owners. In 2015, Pulte Home Corporation purchased the house and property. Pulte applied to the town to rezone the property for a new subdivision called the Oaks at Sears Farm, and offered as a condition of the rezoning to move the farmhouse to another location on the original Sears Farm land and to place a preservation easement on it. The rezoning was approved, and Pulte moved the house to a large corner lot facing Sears Farm Road and overlooking the Sears Farm Road Park. The location was carefully chosen to provide an appropriate setting for the house. And here you can see the view of the Sears house in its new context. And you can see that there is a wooded buffer on the north side. The park is over here across the street. And here is a view of the front elevation of the house on its new lot. Zach and Stephanie Johnson purchased the house from Pulte in 2017 and completed a stellar whole house rehabilitation this past spring. They carefully preserved the original architecture of the house, and in a few cases even replaced missing elements by salvaging parts from other houses that were being torn down. The house is a transitional 4-square style with simple detailing that combines Queen Anne and Craftsman elements. The 4-square house type was a nationally popular dwelling type at the turn of the 20th century, and you could even order one by mail and have its component parts delivered. Let's see if Amazon Prime can do that. On the left side of the screen is a page from an early 1900s mail order catalog for a 4-square house, so called because of its square footprint with a room in each corner surrounding a center hall. It's a very practical, livable style, and catalogs helped make the Foursquare a popular house type in Wake County. The Sears house has the 2 stories, hipped roof, roughly square footprint, and center hall of the Foursquare, but also incorporates some Queen Anne details such as the wraparound porch and the slightly projecting bay. Here is a side view of the house and the rear view of the house. And in this view, it's the northern elevation. I wanted to point out that this part of the house is original to this whole house, but it was a building that was on the farmland before, either a dwelling or a farm building that was repurposed as the kitchen to the larger house. So people often, we have found recycled buildings that were already on the lot, sometimes just bringing them up and building onto them. It was the kitchen then, and it's the kitchen now. The Johnsons removed the 1970s era kitchen renovation that had been done and replaced it with this more appropriate look. The interior core of the house retains most of its original finishes and architectural features. And some of the interior details are beautiful. The center hall staircase, a dining room fireplace. The Johnsons restored the lovely chandelier that's hanging there. And one of the fireplace mantles and surrounds in the parlor of the Sears house, here on the right of the screen, is the same mantle and surround that was available in Sears, Roebuck & Company's 1912 Home Builders catalog for $19.50. And it looks very similar to that one. Other features of the Sears house, such as its 6-panel interior doors and the deep craftsman-style moldings and trim, were also available in the Sears and Roebuck catalog. In summary, the John and Henry Sears house is one of the few remaining farmhouses in Cary left to remind us of our agricultural history. A larger than average farmhouse of the era, it's an excellent example of an early 20th century house that shows local architectural influences as well as influences from nationally available plan books and catalogs. The house's original architecture is largely intact and retains the majority of its original finishes and architectural features. As required, the HPC held a public hearing on the proposed landmark ordinance on September 19th. And Bob Myers, Vice Chair of the Commission, is here to give the HPC's comments and recommendation.
Good evening. Hi. At our September 19th meeting, the Cary Historic Preservation Commission considered the merits of historic landmark designation for the John L. and Henry G. Sears house, now located on Sears Farm Road. Town staff presented a thorough report, as well as the landmark designation report from MDM Associates and the evaluation from the State Historic Preservation Office. Co-owner Zach Johnson provided his insight and details on the beautiful restoration of the house. The commission held a public hearing at which there were no speakers. Commission comments were positive and expressed an appreciation for the quality and the thoroughness of the restoration. The commission voted unanimously to recommend to the Cary Town Council that an ordinance be passed to designate the John L. and Henry G. Sears house a Cary historic landmark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Notice of the public hearing tonight was mailed to property owners within 100 feet of the proposed landmark property, and the property was posted with the sign. This concludes staff's presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions council may have after the public hearing. And one of the property owners was going to be here. I'm not sure if she made it, as they are expecting a child any moment now. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Ms. Radley. So now's time for the public hearing considering an ordinance designating 5104 Sears Farm Road as a Cary historic landmark, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one. I'm sorry. I didn't see you. I apologize.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Joy Anderson, and I am a member of the HPC. And you've heard the criteria for this designation, and I wanted to share a citizen's perspective, if I may. Back in March, I, along with Anna and Bob and Brent, our chair, had the opportunity to visit the site and toured it with Zach Johnson. And we saw what Zach saw. Beautiful center staircase, fireplaces with all the hand-glazed tiles still intact, and the whiteboard floors that we knew were going to come back beautifully, as they did. And here we are, just several months later, asking for this proposal. This house does not sit in a historical district. It sits among a vibrant community of young professionals and families who drive by or walk by every day. Someone had the foresight to move this house to a location in front of a park, and I'm hopeful that this designation will applaud the Johnsons for their efforts and spotlight Cary's continual historic preservation as we move into this next century. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions, comments, or motion. I'm looking at you, Mr. Yerha. You got to have comments on this one.
Well, I do. Of course, I strongly support the recommendation that Anna will provide us. But just to let you know that it takes a village to make a landmark. It doesn't happen overnight. And I just want to acknowledge some of the folks who did put in a lot of work on this, starting particularly with Anna Redling, who works tirelessly along these lines. And I know Anna doesn't do it alone. There's other staff members that work with her. But without her hard work in shepherding this along, we would not be here today. We wouldn't have any of the landmarks that we've put forth recently. Of course, the Historic Preservation Commission did some work on this. The State Historic Preservation Office also did, SHPO. And our consultant, who wrote a wonderful report. I hope you have a chance to read it. I know it's attached to our staff report, but it's really an excellent report on the historical qualities of the house and the architectural ones. Capital Area Preservation was involved, as they usually are in these things. And Pulte Homes. Of course, we'd like to keep a house right where it was to start with. But in this case, Pulte moved it to the same property. So it's the same property that it was on, and it's in, as you can see, a much better location than it was originally. So in this case, moving the house really improved the condition of the house. And it's in a great location. I hope you go by to see it, not just read the report, too. And of course, the Johnsons. I wish them well in the new addition to their family. Hopefully that will be coming soon. But they lovingly restored this house and have cared for it, and they're proud new Cary residents. So there's a lot of people went into making this happen. So I'd be happy to make a motion.
Please.
To approve the ordinance designating 5104 Sears Farm Road as a Cary landmark.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Redland. We now move to our third public hearing, and it's on the financing resolution for Fire Station Number 9 and the replacement aerial ladder trucks. And once again, Ms. Mills will return to the podium and present this item. Council may take action.
Thank you. Hello again. I'm back for another debt item, but this one is the full responsibility of the town of Cary. This debt was planned as part of our fire service capital investment. To continue to provide exemplary public safety services, the town is investing over $10 million to replace the 44-year-old Fire Station Number 9 and 2 aerial ladder trucks. The town's financial plan relies on debt financing $8.6 million of that $10 million capital investment. By spreading the cost of these assets over 15 years through debt payments, taxes paid by citizens in the future help fund the capital cost of delivering the fire service to them. The most cost-effective financing for projects of this size and type is through a contract with a financial institution where we promise to repay the loan and we pledge the fire station real property to the bank like a home mortgage. Banks are willing to make this loan to the town because it's a very safe bet that the town will make its payments and would never walk away from this essential asset. In fact, 13 banks bid on providing this service to the town. And although interest rates have increased in the past year, because the interest income on this loan is tax exempt for the bank, a low bid of 3.12% is a favorable rate for both the town and the lowest bidder, which is an affiliate of SunTrust Bank. Like the debt transaction for the Triangle Aquatic Center, the legal process for Cary's transaction requires council to take 2 steps tonight. First, council must conduct a public hearing on the financing. The public hearing was advertised by legal notice on November 2nd, and for the record, I must confirm that an affidavit regarding the publication of legal notice has been provided to the town clerk. After the public hearing, I'll discuss the proposed council resolution that authorizes the next steps towards a successful debt transaction. So it's now time for the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Now's time for the public hearing for the financial resolution for Fire Station Number 9 and replacement aerial ladder trucks. And I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? I see no one, and I'll close the public hearing and turn it back over to Ms. Mills.
Thank you. So the resolution for council's consideration approves an installment financing agreement and a deed of trust and authorizes staff to follow through to execute these legal documents. This will enable staff to continue to work towards the delivery of 2 new tractor-drawn aerial ladder trucks in the summer of 2019, and Fire Station Number 9 will be ready to move into its new location on Walnut Street in just over 1 year in winter of 2020. So at this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions and recommend approval of the resolution in your staff report titled, "A Resolution Authorizing the Execution and Delivery of an Installment Financing Agreement, a Deed of Trust, and related documents in connection with the financing of a new fire station and fire trucks for the town of Cary, North Carolina."
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Questions or comments or a motion?
Can I just make a move to approve via the resolution that was so stated by Ms. Mills as we move forward rather than the long, lengthy one? Okay, so that's my motion.
Second.
And the second discussion. The only thing I'll say is, for those people that aren't aware, we have this huge development called the Fenton coming online starting in 2020. So the timing is absolutely perfect that this fire station come online at the same time. So it's very important for us to move forward with this.
Just to add to that, the really cool thing is the people that would be moving into the Fenton are also going to be help paying for this.
That's right.
So it doesn't put the entire burden on all our existing citizens.
That's right.
So that's cool.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Thank you.
We now move to our next public hearing. Act 7 Land Development Ordinance Amendments, and Assistant Town Manager Dan Alt will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this rezoning tonight, but it's going to be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and their recommendation, and it will return to us at a future meeting. Mr. Alt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, for your consideration, we have amendment to the LDO, Act 7 of the LDO, and the requirement is all about legal compliance, and it's a technical clarification, so it's not something that's driven directly out of the Cary Community Plan, but still is important that we take action at some point or consider. So the purpose is to amend our land development ordinance to comply with a recent FCC order. The order is effective January 14th, 2019, so taking action before the end of the year, we believe is in our best interest, or to consider it before the end of the year. The reason the order stands regardless of whether we amend the land development ordinance. So the reason that we believe that it is important to still take action is it speaks to our intent to not to materially inhibit or to unintentionally delay the deployment of small cell and 5G technology. So while this is a very dynamic issue, there's a lot of moving parts. Both industry and our staff will be kind of working together to work through items. This really speaks to our intent that we're not going against what the FCC has recently ordered. There still are concerns that we have. The FCC's goal, as I stated, is to really streamline the deployment of 5G across the United States so that there's some universal standards in place. That's why they issued the order, and why we are kind of making a statement on our intent to not go against the grain of that order. It does limit local government authority, so there's certainly concerns there as these orders come out. It limits our ability to have an impact how these technologies are deployed, and how they are specifically, deployed within Cary. The short-term impacts, the long-term impacts, especially now as they can be deployed in the right-of-way, is a big area of concern. Again, being a very dynamic issue, this is not going to be the end of it. Last December, we also made an amendment to the land development ordinance as a result of state law that was passed. So I fully expect that there will be more of these coming forward. We are continuing to lobby on the matter. Again, specifically when it comes to small cells that are being deployed in our right-of-way. And the technology as well, we believe, can have a big impact on our smart cities initiatives as well. So we want to have a seat at the table as this continues to progress. So I'd fully expect that we'll be back here again, continuing to probably make amendments or make changes. So for now, that's where we're at. And the next step will be, after the public hearing tonight, would be to go forward to planning and zoning from there. And we will continue to monitor the issue and update council if there's anything substantive that we find as we begin to review more and more applications after this order takes effect. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor, for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Alt. Now's time for the public hearing for Act 7 Land Development Ordinance Amendment. And I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And before we send it on to Planning and Zoning Board, open it up to council members for questions or comments. I know that we've expressed concern about aesthetics and distracting from drivers in public right-of-way, which I guess we're lobbying on. My question is, are we seeing improvements in technology? The picture doesn't look as ugly as it did a year or two ago, so I'm guessing we're getting a little bit better.
It's come a long way just in the last few years. Again, that kind of speaks to the dynamic nature. Just last month, there was another ruling that came out that came in terms of the frequencies, but the aesthetics especially, they are improving. They still aren't, maybe exactly what you want them to be, but I'd anticipate as 5G continues to get deployed and their ability to screen them or make them stealth will continue to improve. So we're hopeful on that.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay. This is going to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation. And appreciate it, Mr. Alt. And we'll move to our last public hearing. It's the Morrisville Parkway and Highway 55 assemblage rezoning. And Senior Planner Katie Dry will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this rezoning, and it's going to be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and we will see it at a future meeting. Ms. Dry.
Good evening, Council. For your consideration is a request to rezone 11.87 acres at the intersection of Highway 55 and Morrisville Parkway. This is an assemblage of 3 properties, and as you can see, they form an unusual shape. 2 of the properties are part of the American Soil and Mulch site, and the third triangular-shaped piece is a vacant property on Highway 55. The current zoning is Office, Research and Development, Office and Institutional, and R40, and the applicant's requesting to rezone to General Commercial Conditional Use and R8 Conditional Use. For the R8 conditional use portion, the applicants proposed a condition to limit the detached dwellings to 3 dwelling units per acre. And now this is where things get a little more complex. For the general commercial conditional use portion, the applicants have provided a list of prohibited uses but have not specified exactly what will go on the property. Here's a copy of the prohibited list uses provided by the applicant. Such prohibited uses include uses such as nightclub with indoor operation, ABC store, outdoor storage. And now this leaves a lengthy list of possible uses that could go in the general commercial zoning district. Examples include retail store, car wash, convenience store, kennel, bank, hotel, etc. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the applicant has not indicated definitively what they intend to put on the property, but for the purposes of the traffic study, they propose to evaluate a car wash, in-vehicle filling stations, a restaurant with a drive-through, an office building, and the small portion of residential lots on the triangular-shaped parcel. And they have proposed with a zoning condition, a zoning condition so that no use that's proposed on the development can exceed the total vehicular site trips that were analyzed with the traffic study. And if they develop a car wash, they propose zoning conditions that limit the location and the hours of operation for the car wash. Staff has looked at the two components of the request. First, a challenging triangular shaped piece of property where the residential use is proposed would blend well with the adjacent Blakely subdivision. This is a snapshot of the town's interactive development map. You can see the R8 portion here is directly adjacent to the Blakely subdivision, which is under construction, which will include townhomes and detached dwellings, and this would blend well with that. The general commercial portion does not give the same degree of certainty. The properties are within the mixed neighborhood designation, which allows a combination of residential development and a limited amount of non-residential uses. It is on the edge of the adjacent neighborhoods and it fronts thoroughfares, but without knowing exactly what the applicant's proposing, it's hard to say at this time whether the request is consistent with the plan. And the applicant is aware of staff's preliminary analysis and has indicated a willingness to evaluate the list of allowed uses as the case moves forward to the Planning and Zoning Board. When we look at the town's GIS maps, there could be the presence of stream buffers on the site, as indicated in this map here. And looking at the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Facilities Master Plan, there would be street side trail constructed along the property frontages for both Morrisville Parkway and Highway 55. And the Transportation Plan indicates that both adjacent roads are major thoroughfares. As I mentioned, a traffic study was required for the site. It evaluated 17 intersections within 1 mile of the property. One of the key factors with the traffic study was an evaluation of the access points, which will all be restricted movements on both Morrisville Parkway and Highway 55. While 2 of the access points will be right in and right out, the applicants have requested the option for a left in where the site will be connecting Hayes Hill Place down to Morrisville Parkway. The residential portion will have access from 2 stubs in the Blakely subdivision, and these will not connect directly to Highway 55. The applicant has proposed turn lane improvements with these side access points. However, there's no commitment to complete any recommended improvements at the intersection of Highway 55 and Morrisville Parkway. And now to layer on an additional factor, there's an existing active rezoning case across the street to the south, the Cary Point rezoning. And combined with this site, it will have a significant impact on the intersection. Staff has encouraged both applicants to collaborate, and the applicants have indicated just recently that they may be considering zoning conditions to reflect a coordinated approach as the case moves forward. The improvements at the intersection of NC 55 and Morrisville Parkway, which would include a second left turn lane for the eastbound and southbound approach and a right turn lane at the westbound approach, would be critical to accommodate the traffic from these sites, as well as the shift in traffic patterns once Morrisville Parkway connects to NC 540. Looking at transit, there is an existing GO Triangle transit route along NC 55. And in preparation for the public hearing, as well as the neighborhood meeting, properties within 800 feet of the subject properties were notified. There was a neighborhood meeting held on September 5th of 2018. There were 6 neighbors who attended this neighborhood meeting. They had questions about the proposed use and the rezoning process, but in general did not express opposition to the request. So this concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here to share comments. Following that, in the public hearing, staff's available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Try. At this time, I would invite the applicant forward for their remarks.
My card and some exhibits. I'll be right back. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Gray Stiers. My address is 434 Fayetteville Street, Suite 2800 in Raleigh, North Carolina, 27601. And it is my privilege today to be before you on behalf of Russell and Diana Tarleton, who own the property in the corner. Mr. Tarleton was going to try to come tonight, but I did not see him come in. He is here. Wonderful. Mr. Tarleton is here, and I believe he'll be speaking here. He owns and operates the American Soil and Mulch operation there on the corner, as well as D. Cook Properties LLC that owns the narrow triangular piece, as well as Sam's Express Car Wash, with whom the Tarletons have their property under contract to purchase. And I have here with me tonight the Chief Operating Officer, Mike Hill of Sam's Express Car Wash, Construction Manager, Chris Morgan, and Marketing Manager, Jody Wilkerson. Now, our application that was filed in this case includes a detailed 3-page justification, single-spaced, which explains why and how these rezonings conform the properties to the changed conditions of the area. And you know this area of Cary has changed a lot over the past several years. And the mulch that is operation which is currently there is not the highest and best use of an intersection of two thoroughfares, as staff has shown you on your plans. That justification, number one, also explains how the rezoning is consistent with your comprehensive plan and section 1.3 of your LDO. And each of the other components, there are 6 different criteria to consider for change conditions for rezoning, and our justification lays out all 6 of those. In addition, our application includes a detailed 3-page zoning justification, statement number 2, that discusses in detail how the rezoning is in fact consistent with each chapter of the Cary Community Plan and Future Growth Framework map. Your Chapter 6 shape is particularly relevant to these rezonings because if you look at those policy goals in your Chapter 6, these rezonings encourage mixed-use development, which is exactly what this is. It's retail, office, and residential, consistent with policy number 3. It facilitates redevelopment, infill development, consistent with policy 4. Now, you may not consider this to be a classic infill, but if you think about it and you look at the maps and look at how everything has been developed around it, the self-storage across the street, the Blakewood subdivision. So what do you have? You have an oddly shaped orphan piece surrounded by other uses that's kind of left over after everything else has been developed around it. So it really is an infill redevelopment consistent with policy 4. These rezonings support revitalization of a targeted redevelopment corridor consistent with policy 5, provides appropriate transitions between land uses consistent with policy 6, provides opportunities for a limited non-residential use outside commercial centers consistent with policy 7, and preserves and maintains Cary's attractive appearance and quality of development consistent with policy 8. Now, if you haven't had time, and it has a lot of words to read all those zoning justifications, perhaps a few pictures would be worth 1,000 words. And I would ask the clerk if she would to pass out a few photographs of the area. I know you're probably familiar with the area, but so photographs may help me illustrate some of the points that we believe justify and support the rezoning of this property. And I'll go through these very, very quickly as soon as the pictures are passed around. Oh, let me say also, we do agree with the staff recommendation that there can be additional prohibited uses. And we've talked with Ms. Dry, Ms. Grannon, and we will be proposing additional prohibition and additional condition to that, which I'll talk about in a few moments. But I'm just going to go through these pictures very quickly. The first picture you'll see is the entrance to American Soil and Mulch there off of Highway 55. And then across the street of Highway 55, the second picture is the new public storage, self-storage, and the water tank as you're looking south on 55, and then the third picture as you're looking north on 55. But then if you turn the page, you'll see where literally, I think it's the name of a book, where the sidewalk ends. That's where there is no development on Morrisville Parkway and where we would propose the improvements that would be required by your LDO and that we would be constructing.
The next photograph just is a picture of the site from Morrisville Parkway. If you get down to Sedgeville View and you look back east on Morrisville Parkway, you'll see, again, the barrier where, in fact, the sidewalk ends. Where there is no sidewalks, there are no improvements there, which is the subject property site. Also, you see that barrier as you're moving back east on Highway 55, Morrisville Parkway in the next picture. And then looking across the street, you can see the mulching equipment there and the water tank in the background looking across Morrisville Parkway. And then the other self-storage just in the southwest corner of the intersection that has been recently constructed. Those photographs give you some idea from the ground of what is there and perhaps more importantly, what is not there at this site. The second set of photographs, I thought if you haven't driven in the Blakely subdivision recently, I wanted to show you there why this case was contemplated when Blakely was approved. If you were to drive down Hayes Hill Place, you would see this sign here, road closed, future road extension. The design for Blakely in the entire area showed a southern entrance from the Blakely subdivision and the units, 127, I believe that your map showed units, to Morrisville Parkway. This rezoning fulfills that design. Currently, the only entrance out of the subdivision is either up into Indian Wells to the north or cutting through Sedgeville View Road to the west. It was contemplated at all times that there was going to be a rezoning, there was going to be a development, and this fulfills that plan. Likewise, the other two pictures are the stub outs into the Cook Properties property, where we would just extend with a few more lots. So again, you have in Blakely subdivision the contemplation of exactly the rezoning case that we're bringing before you tonight. Now, we realize that, things can change in rezoning and there is no specific plan that you would be approving or use. Yet, we did want to say we have our plans pretty well in place, and behind the next color page is a concept plan of a Sam's Express car wash in the corner, likely an office building next to that, and then the 6 lots that would be allowed is pretty much an extension of Blakely, and then one more out parcel that could be constructed and how the traffic flow would occur within and between those lots. As a concept plan, it's very much what we're looking at and what our land planners believe will work. And the last pictures here, if you haven't been to a Sam's Car Wash, they are new to this area, they're rapidly expanding, and you'll hear from Mr. Hill about how they are looking forward to coming into the Triangle with more of a presence. But here's a concept plan of what one looks like. If you haven't been down to see the one on William Street and Apex, and the next picture is actually a picture of a Sam's Car Wash. These are at the very end of what they look like. And Mr. Hill will talk a little bit more about the Sam's Express company shortly. Again, we will be limiting, at staff's recommendation, some of the uses because we are not looking to construct destination uses that people will drive to from far away. We are committed to providing services that are needed by and are useful to the neighbors who live near and drive past these properties. Based upon our community meeting, we are currently not aware of any neighborhood opposition of this rezoning, which has not always been my experience when I've stood at this podium in years past. In fact, at the community meeting, one of the folks from the Blakely subdivision, when we told them what our plans were, said, "We are already driving to Apex, to William Street, to use the Sam's Car Wash there. We would love to have one closer by for our use," a statement that was made in our community meeting. That's exactly what the community plan calls for, the Cary Community Plan, for this location. That's what our plans are for this location, and that's why the rezoning is appropriate and we believe should be approved. Now, there is only one, but there is one issue that we're aware that is currently outstanding, and that's the extent of the road improvements that may be a condition to this rezoning. The total road frontage along Highway 55 is over 2,000 feet, 2,188 feet along Highway 55. The total road frontage along Morrisville Parkway is over 1,000 feet, 1,014 feet, where there are no sidewalks, where there are no improvements. The landowners will be responsible for frontage improvements along those entire distances, including sidewalks, streetscape, acceleration and deceleration lanes for access into and out of the property. It's a lot of frontage improvements that we will have to make under your LDO, and we will be making. We are also constructing and dedicating as a public street the continuation of Hayes Hill Place to Morrisville Parkway, where the sign which said future extension. And you'll see on the map, you'll see south Hayes Hill Place stops and is currently not connected. Needs to be connected for emergency response vehicles, needs to be connected for better circulation. That we will be providing. At this point, we are still evaluating how much more we can do for the purchase of the Charlton's property to be commercially viable for any type of development. In the staff report says that it would be critical, improvements to the intersection of Morrisville Parkway and Highway 55, quote, would be critical to accommodate the shift in the traffic patterns expected as a result of the Morrisville Parkway extension and NC 540 interchange project for improved east-west connectivity. And that is an absolutely correct statement. But our clients should not be required and cannot afford to make all the improvements at this intersection that may be needed because of the new 540 Morrisville Parkway intersection. Now, we are hopeful, and let me say, and on a positive note, we are hopeful that there will be an opportunity to coordinate with the owners of Cary Point property. The fact you've got two rezonings across the street from each other create an opportunity for us to work together. And so that we can make some improvements to that intersection, most likely a second left-hand turn lane from eastbound Morrisville Parkway to northbound Highway 55, because there we have the property on both sides for the right-of-way, and we believe that that makes a lot of sense if we can coordinate. We had a second meeting with the folks from Cary Point this morning, and we identified the variables that will determine that issue: the availability and location of the right-of-way for the turn lane while accommodating all the other improvements and streetscapes that will be required, the total cost of the additional turn lane, and a cost-sharing arrangement for that improvement. Those are three variables, and we will be working on that. We hope to be able to propose an additional joint condition along with the Cary Point rezoning for that improvement prior to the P&Z meeting, and we will diligently be working on that. Travis Flewitt of Kimley Horn has looked at the proposed uses and the TAR and is available to answer any specific questions you might have regarding the off-site road improvements of the rezoning. But at this time, I've probably taken up more than my 10 minutes, so I will ask if Mr. Tarleton is available. I think he'll be the next speaker of the public witnesses, and I'm available to answer any questions now or be glad to come up after Mr. Tarleton speaks and Mr. Hill speaks.
Mr. Tarleton have to speak at the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Only one applicant speaks.
Okay, I understand. He would speak as a public hearing witness. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So as the applicant, do you have any other questions for me at this time? And again,
We usually ask the questions afterwards, so we might call you back.
Okay, thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right, we will start this public hearing. Now's the time for the public hearing for 18 REZ 19 Morrisville Parkway and North Carolina 55 Highway assemblage. And I would invite my first speaker forward. Sorry to have you get up and sit down and get up.
I'm reading this for my father. His knees are pretty bad.
Okay.
We have the same name. And I have the wrong glasses too, so. I'm Russell Tarleton III, so he's junior. My name is Russell Tarleton. I own two of the parcels that are the subject of this rezoning. I moved my mulching business to Cary when the properties that are in subject of this rezoning were more of a rural in nature. For the last 30 years, I've seen tremendous growth and change in Cary. The recent expansions of Highway 55 and Morrisville Parkway have changed the condition of my property. I am currently operating a mulching facility on one of the parcels, which is no longer ideal for this location. I personally believe that the property, given its location at the intersection, is much more appropriate for the extensive use that provides services to the people who have moved into the area and drive up and down the roads on a daily basis. In my dealings with Sam's Express Car Wash, I have found them to be an honorable and professional company. I've reviewed their plans and believe they will be beneficial to the neighborhood, and believe Sam's will clean up the property, make it attractive and consistent with the surrounding properties and expanded road system. I care about the area, and I want to be proud of how the land that I've owned for so many years is developed. The best and most reasonable use of the property is general commercial, and I fully support proposed rezoning.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mike Hill. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Sam's Express Car Wash. Sam's is a family-owned North Carolina-based business with our name on the sign. Our headquarters is in Matthews, which is just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. The first Sam's Express Car Wash opened in December of 2012, and now we are up to a total of 23 stores with 3 under construction. We are growing rapidly. We have opened 5 stores this year alone. It's part of our corporate culture to be a good corporate citizen. We provide a valuable and high-end service to the community, and if people didn't need and like our service, they wouldn't come back and we wouldn't be successful. We have very loyal customers, so we must be doing something right. Sam's is committed to being a good steward of our property, and we care about the communities that we serve. We are very careful in choosing our locations. The corner of Mooresville Parkway and Highway 55 is a great location for a Sam's Express Car Wash, and the community will enjoy us being there. The rezoning will support and contribute to Cary's live, work, play goals for the area. We appreciate the opportunity to work with Cary staff on addressing any concerns and look forward to being a contributing member of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for this public hearing? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll invite Ms. Dry back up to the podium. I just want to make sure I understand that there is no condition on the use, and so we still have a variety of uses available.
That's correct. They're proposing to limit certain or prohibit certain uses, but there's still a wide variety of uses that could be developed on the site. Additionally, I'd like to note that the applicant's representative did show a concept plan. However, that concept plan is not part of this rezoning, so there's no element of that plan that's associated with the application at this point. And additionally, they've not proposed any architectural conditions, so there's no element of the architectural that was shown as well that would be tied to this request at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Dry. And to follow up on that, you have to understand this council has over 80 years' experience, and we've kind of seen it all and done it all, and we've been burned many times. So we have to think the worst case scenario. So if you're thinking it might be a car wash, you might want to consider a condition. Otherwise, we have to think of all the possibilities that can go there and what that would mean at that corner, and is that the best use? And that's what we'll be considering, not what was talked about or shown, because that's not a condition, as Ms. Dry said. And with that, I'll open it up to council members for questions or comments before we send it to the Planning and Zoning Board.
I have
Any other-
comments.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when this sliver of residential was left over, when Blakely was developed, I had a lot of reservations about it. I mean, I think we even asked, why aren't you incorporating that little sliver of land? And it just seemed crazy to me that the Futrell family held on to it and didn't do anything with it. At this point, what I want to make sure is that we're not setting up, I mean, right now, Blakely is very nicely buffered. I want to make sure that we are not going to trash this area by bringing these residential houses right next to an extraordinarily busy road. I felt comfortable with maybe 3 lots total. I don't know if I can, get excited about 6 lots, but, I think there's some work to be done around making us feel comfortable about this project. The fact that all these trees will come down for this huge stormwater area, if I was the applicant, I would think very carefully about what these stormwater areas are going to be like and give us some kind of assurances about that it's not going to be just a huge pond that's going to be, chain link fenced around, or, 12-foot wall, retaining wall, some of the crappy, ugly stuff that we're getting for stormwater devices. I want to make sure that it's going to be something that is respectful to the environment and also buffers the Blakely neighborhood appropriately. Same thing with the other stormwater detention pond that is illustrated down near the entrance that would then become the Blakely subdivision. This is going to be their entry into their neighborhood. This is going to be huge for them, and it has to look good. I'm just going to need some kind of assurances in writing that it's actually going to look good. As far as the use of this, I'd like to see some conditions, as you said, tie it down and give us that confidence that it's going to be something that's okay. I won't feel comfortable putting a gas station on this site or many other uses that have yet to be conditioned, so I need to see that in writing.
Other comments?
I think you and Ms. Robinson said most of what needs to be said. I too would agree that the little triangle portion, disappointing that it wasn't incorporated as part of Blakely, but I can't help look at this and say maybe they didn't want to do that because then they would have had to make road improvements and, you know,
Yeah,
makes you wonder. Can't say they did or they didn't,
Yeah.
but, so now this development's going to have to make those improvements. So the 6 units versus 3, I don't know that that gives me the heartburn, but I do want the assurances that it's going to look good and add value to the community and not be a burden, not look trashy. That entrance coming in from the south, I think, is very key. So, yeah, it's kind of disappointing to be handed all this stuff about a car wash and they're not even conditioning it as a car wash. I mean, it's just surprising to me.
Any other comments?
No, I think you both made excellent comments. At first, when I was looking at the list of all the possible uses, some of them are kind of scary next to a residential area. So all of these just reiterate the fact that if you know you want to do something, then just tell us what you want to do. Because all of that worst case scenario of like a kennel right next to a residential is not going to be something that I think this council would support. And then also, I understand that you want this property and you would like to, or the applicant would potentially like to ask for some relief, I guess, when it comes to putting in a streetscape over this whole long pass or not wanting to do traffic mitigation. But that's what comes with, doing a rezoning. So I understand that the partnership with the Cary Point is a great opportunity for you to mitigate the direct cost to you because you're potentially purchasing a property that has a lot of street frontage, right? So the mitigation for that, for putting in the sidewalk, for that whole long space, that's necessary. That's part of the impact of putting in a business there. So I don't think you'll get any relief, at least for, I can only speak for myself. I would not expect to give relief for what every other developer does, just because you have a piece of property that's much, much longer street frontage.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, I think, it was interesting to listen to the arguments or the proposal around a car wash. I mean, the reality is, we're seeing over the years, car washes and storage centers, they have kind of a honky-tonk feel. They don't have they don't come across as a good fit in communities. And what both uses have learned over the years is they want to be closer to the people, but they have to come in and they have to be a cut above. And so that's why I think what you're hearing is a lot of suggestions around conditions. I think this is basically like an entrance into a community, like an entrance into Cary. It's kind of a microcosm of that. And I think what you're hearing is we want to see some assurances and we want to see some conditions. That's just my perspective.
Thank you. And just so the applicant is aware, the reason we're giving feedback is to help, not to be more critical, but to help. As you move forward, you may consider changes, you may not. You might think, I'm done, this is what's going forward, and we'll have to make our decision based on that. But we're giving you feedback, and what's also going to happen is it's going to go to the Planning and Zoning Board, and they're going to give you their feedback, and it might be totally opposite from ours. We don't know. But then all that comes back, and we weigh it, and we make a decision. So please continue to work with us. If you have questions or comments you want to get to us, You can either contact us via email, through the town clerk, any other way you want to contact us. Your staff liaison, Ms. Dry, will be glad to help in any way. And if you need more information about what we've said this evening, we'll be glad to provide our thoughts and our opinions.
May I have 1 minute or two just to respond, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
No, I just want to say, I do appreciate your feedback very much. Sam's Express Car Wash, has this property under contract for one purpose, and that is to build a Sam's Car Wash.
Then condition it.
Excuse me?
Then condition it.
We can, so there will be and we can do that. There will be a second parcel to the west.
We understand that.
And whether that's a and it's not one of the limitations, so it wouldn't be a worst case scenario from a traffic perspective, is the fact that we have limited it to a certain traffic count. We understand the importance of the concerns of traffic and generation. We will condition it more. We will work with you in that regard. You can certainly do that. And but we don't know what that second use is going to be. But in discussions with your transportation department, we've talked about a bank, we've talked about a small restaurant, a coffee shop, something that would blend into the community. We understand the concerns about the stormwater, and we will certainly look at that. A lot of that comes into the site plan process, and so we need to work with Ms. Grannon and Ms. Dry to figure out how to craft zoning conditions that assure you. This is, I will say, Sam's is a family-owned business. They're rapidly growing, and they have a great reputation. We think they have a great reputation, and they're going to design and construct a facility that reflects well on the family and well on the brand. And we would encourage you to look at other Sam's Expresses. There's one in Wake Forest, there's one in Knightdale, there's one in Apex. I will be back before you at your next meeting about our second proposed one in Cary. So we are excited about the opportunity, and we look forward to working with you to make sure that this meets your expectations and is a good use at this location. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Unless there are any other comments from council, this will go to the Planning and Zoning Board. Since we're late in the year, I'm guessing early in the year, or would they see it in
Probably
December?
January at the
Yep.
soonest.
January, so it'd probably be February or further out before we'll see it again.
Understood.
So thank you for being here, and thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
We now move to our discussion items. We have only one discussion item, and it's on the table. So before we do anything, we got to have a motion to remove it from the table. If we don't have a successful motion to do that, we're done.
Make a motion to remove it from the table.
All
I'll
right.
second.
There's a motion and a second discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and it's off the table. And we'll turn it over to Ms. Grannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. For your consideration is a request to rezone approximately 7.2 acres located at 1623 North Harrison Avenue. This site probably looks familiar. You've seen this case before. The last time you saw it was back in July, so I'll do a very brief recap and refresh your memory. Subject property is located within a commercial mixed-use center adjacent to North Harrison Avenue. It was first submitted back in 2016. The applicant proposed 350 rooms, 3 buildings, 8 stories, champion tree removal, a 100-foot building setback. The neighbors were not happy. They were very upset with what was proposed. There was lots of opposition at the neighborhood meeting, so the applicant went back to the drawing board and came back in with a revised preliminary development plan, which you saw over a year ago. And this reduced the number of hotel rooms to 252 rooms, reduced the height to a 3 to 7 story height, took the hotel count from 3 buildings down to 2 buildings, preserved the champion trees, and then took that 100-foot building setback and increased that to 250 feet. You heard Mrs. Topp explain earlier about efforts that were made to reach out to the neighbors. That is accurate. There were frequent meetings with the neighbors. There was an agreement made with an adjacent property owner to preserve some of their recreation area in an easement that encroached into the subject property, and then private agreements that took place with the NC State grant. The transportation plan was one of the major issues that came up as part of the discussions with this proposal. The applicant did propose a 100-foot stacking lane and road improvements across their frontage. There's an opportunity today to make a U-turn on North Harrison Avenue, and one of the conditions the applicant offered was to construct a bulb out to help make that U-turn safer. There was a connection point dispute between the subject property and the adjacent property to the north. There's an existing easement. However, you heard from the adjacent property owner that they did not want to honor that easement. So the applicant has come back in with yet another revision to the plan to propose an alternate driveway to the Arboretum property in the event they're not able to get that connection to that vacant O&I parcel that's an out parcel with Arboretum. So this shows you both alternatives, either using the existing recorded easement that was part of a zoning condition when the Arboretum was approved. If they run into a roadblock with that, then they've shown us that they can make it work if they go up to the Arboretum apartments. So as you heard earlier tonight during Public Speaks Out, the Arboretum Shopping Center folks have acquired the apartments, and they've reached an agreement so that they could make a connection there. Now, does that mean that they will be able to put signs up and say, don't make a right turn here? We can't regulate that. They did offer to do that, but that's not something that we can accept as a zoning condition. We don't regulate text on a message. But everyone who stays in a hotel knows a concierge is going to tell you the safest, easiest way to get in and out of the property. But again, it can't be offered as a zoning condition. There was concerns about what this might look like, and the applicant provided a cross-section to help depict where the hotels would be and help show the relationship between the building height and the adjacent Wessex neighborhood. And then we wanted to show you an example of what something like this might look like. And these are the actual hotels off Walnut Street on Leadsom Lane, one with 130 rooms and one with 108 rooms. So this is approximately the same scale and approximately the same size as what you might have. Interestingly enough, the only way in and out of these properties is with a right turn onto Walnut Street. So I just thought that was interesting. There's no opportunity for a connection here either. Staff analyzed the request and saw that the proposal does address the policies in the work chapter of the Imagine Cary Community Plan. The proximity and the buffers adjacent to that residential neighborhood either meet or exceed LDO standards. The Planning and Zoning Board found the request to be consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan and recommended this for approval by a vote of 8-0. And staff's recommendation is also that this is consistent with the plan and that it supports the work and shape policies and exceeds LDO standards. The applicant is present, and I'm available for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council?
I'll just say real fast, one thing that was not mentioned is that the buffer between the community and this project is now 171 feet, correct? There's a 250-foot setback, but the buffer is 171 feet.
The buffer is actually 80 feet, but the land area allows that. That is correct.
171 feet.
Correct.
I have a couple of questions. We've seen at previous meetings that we've had, even up to the one we had where we tabled it, a lot of residents. On both sides, we've seen a lot of people, the Reedy Creek individuals, et cetera. Did we let residents know that we were taking it off the table? Did we reach out to anyone? What was the notification?
We've had it on our website, and the immediately adjacent property owners were aware.
So they were, the HOA and Jason of Reedy Creek?
We did not do another mailing. No, we did not.
Not a mailing, but
do
did
another
we
mailing.
reach out to them and let them know that it was going to be on tonight's schedule?
I did not, no.
Okay.
Other than to have it on our website and have it on our
I'm just
agenda.
surprised they're not here, that we didn't have anyone speak at Public Speaks Out, because they've been pretty vocal.
They might be satisfied now.
Yeah.
Well, not Reedy Creek, I'm pretty sure, but maybe the residents are. I just,
Reedy Creek was aware of this.
Reedy Creek was aware it's on the
Yes,
table?
yes.
That it was, okay.
Other questions or comments?
Just two things, I guess. I heard earlier was reduced from 3 to 2 buildings, but we actually reduce it as a single building with 2 hotels. I think I clarified that from this drawing. It actually is fully connected, firewalls or whatever, but there's not 2 buildings here. It's just one L shape.
It's all connected.
Correct.
That is correct. it might be considered two buildings depending on the construction, but it's going to look significantly like what you see here.
And just a point of clarification, the picture you showed of two hotels, if they were connected, that would be the size we're talking about.
Well, there's a lot to like with this plan, that's for sure. The only thing I've never liked, and that's right from the beginning, is the necessity to go south on Harrison and make a U-turn or go through the adjoining neighborhood through Montebello in order to go north on Harrison toward RTP or I-4. It's the only thing I haven't liked. I like everything else about it. So now we have an alternate way of doing that. Let's say I guess the original connection is still the preferred one because that's where the easement was. But let's say negotiations don't work there with Reedy Creek and that doesn't happen. We have this other one right next to it to go directly north. That's not signed, sealed, and delivered either, is my understanding. I don't know.
There's no zoning condition that says this is how it's going to be built, but we're going to require it as part of our development plan review that they make a connection to the north. And if they make this connection, then they will be in compliance with our plan review policies.
So if that connection is not made and the original one is not made and there's only one way out onto Harrison, that would not pass development.
Right, we have to require them to make a connection to the north.
That helps.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
that
that was,
normally a condition?
that was my biggest sticking point.
Yeah, is that normally a condition? I mean, we've done in the past. where-
It's a requirement. It's an ordinance requirement for the connectivity.
Okay.
Other comments or questions?
Yeah. When this was initially proposed, I met with the residents. I heard their concerns. And I got to give the Daily folks credit. They have gone above and beyond what I've seen any developer in this town do. 2 years to massage and work a plan that addressed most all the neighbors' concerns, to the point where I actually tallied up emails 2 days ago. I've got more emails from neighbors in support of this project than I do against this project, to include one from the area HOA. That rarely happens. They've reduced the height, they've increased the building setback, they've reduced the number of rooms by almost 100 rooms. One thing that's really stood out to me was the efforts they went to address stormwater runoff and water quality, and pursued a federal grant to work with the Black Creek watershed folks to do that. I mean, it's been an impressive adventure, I think, for them. The one part that I struggled with the last time we saw this was the previous connection through the Reedy Creek investment property that was contentious. And I think that gave all of us heartburn, but now what's being proposed, they've solved that problem. I mean, it's just every time they go up against a wall, they figure out a way to get over the wall. It's incredibly impressive, to the point where I don't really see one good logical reason to oppose the project anymore. Our Planning and Zoning Board unanimously approved it. Staff recommends approval. And at the end of the day, to me, the use makes sense. The area needs that business traveler type of hotel in the area. It really does. So I'm inclined to support it.
I would say one thing that made a real impression to me, especially when the connection got made to the Arboretum, and the Arboretum spoke in favor of it at least twice that I know of, is that we have this wonderful opportunity at the Fenton to have this mixed-use development that's got all these elements. And now we've got an infill development that actually helps complete the Arboretum. And I understand the Arboretum, when it first came forward, had a hotel proposed with it as part of the development, and that got pulled, and there were apartments there in place. But now this almost is like we're able to infill and complete something that never was complete in the beginning, and it's rather than changing course. I know you guys have voted on a lot of things that didn't turn out like you thought it was going to turn out, and this is just a good thing that it's going to turn out like it might have turned out in the first place had the assemblage been done earlier. And I know that often doesn't happen, that when it doesn't get assembled together, you wind up with something way different than what you thought could have been. You waited for great, but you didn't get it. And now we actually have an opportunity where something comes in later and adds to it and enhances the Arboretum, and I think helps the Arboretum, so,
But I do think Arboretum is great.
you know, this makes it greater. Yes, so that's my comment on that.
The only thing I will add is, okay, if it doesn't develop as a hotel, what's it going to develop as? It's going to develop. Do we want a major apartment complex here? Do you want high-density residential? I mean, no matter what gets developed on this site, it's going to generate traffic. It's going to be an impact. And I think at the end of the day, this is probably as low an impact of all the other uses that could go there, so.
Mini storage.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen.
Any other comments, or are we ready for a
The
motion?
only, I guess, I've struggled with this as well, and I've gone back and forth as, throughout the months that we've heard about this, and I agree with you, I have to give the applicant a lot of credit. I also think that it's really difficult to wait and have something tabled while other items are being kind of flushed out, so I give them also credit to, give us the time and also giving them the time to come up with an alternative solution, because frankly, the connectivity was a no for me. That's a really tough place. The traffic's bad at 8 and 9 when people are going to leave. They're not going to be folks coming out of a hotel. They don't know which way to go, and making a U-turn on a road that's really busy, trying to figure out how to get back to the highway is dangerous. And so that was the sticking point for me. And all the other items, I totally agree with you, were way above and beyond and impressive, but it wasn't getting me past the fact that it seemed to be dangerous. Now, with the addition of these 2 hotels, that puts 5 hotels within a mile area. I was a little concerned about that. If you're going to have it, though, anywhere, having them at the corner of an interstate and major workforce areas, it's the perfect place. I can't imagine having any more, and any others coming up, but that if you're going to have it somewhere, so I am more positive towards this than I've been up until this point.
Okay. Motion?
I move that we adopt a statement of consistency for 16 REZ 15 as attached to the staff report and approve the rezoning.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. For discussion, I will also say that I was probably the biggest critic of anyone here, and I am really impressed. If you look at the percentage needle for me, it was a 95% no. I am not voting to approve this. And now it's pretty close to middle. However, it didn't quite make it for me. You went a long way with the neighbors, the access, the height, the density, but I still think, and I'm picturing the rest of the development from Cary Parkway all the way to I-40, I worry about the density. And I think this might be a little too much. I think the use is perfect. I just worry about the density. So I still can't quite support it, but I very much appreciate all the changes that were done. So, any other comments before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. It's a 6-1. That concludes the discussion items, and we're ready to go into closed session.
Pursuant to 1 and 3, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, among other things. We expect to receive advice concerning the following lawsuits and regarding Memento Mori, LLC, Chapter 11, Case 1804661-5-DMW, Hawthorne at Parkside Apartments, LLC, and Evolve Acquisition, LLC versus the Town of Cary, to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential by GS 143-31810.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we're going into closed session.
You gotta know somebody over there.
We'll reconvene our council meeting at this time. We have no other business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
Second, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.